If you want to show off your mad, tricky skills to your friends and slow down time like Quicksilver, then the Trickster class is for you. Let's go through my endgame build for the new Worldslayer expansion, and I'll give you some tips and tricks to how to play this class. Let's go. So how you play as this Trickster build is it's really focused on close range damage as with all Tricksters, but we're focusing specifically on the shotgun. Now this build is more or less very similar to builds that would have been to do with the endgame from the base game. There's not much really changes. Some of the stuff does change in terms of skills and using some of the new mods or some of the apocalypse gear, giving yourself extra mods. But essentially the way that this functions is around the twisted rounds skill, and all of the Trickster builds should really revolve around this skill, as when this is active, it just significantly enhances your overall damage by a huge percentage, and then you can use mods as well to buff that even further as well. And then with things like Perpetual Mobile or the Vampiric Mag, which is what I'm using, you can then further increase the benefits of that because you never have to reload, which means you never actually lose that skill. I'm also using Hunt the Prey here as my way of essentially get out of jail free card. Hunt the Prey is like super versatile as a skill. You can use it to get away from enemies. You can also use it to get some of your shields and bonuses back from that, as well as applying effects to the enemy so you can kill them much faster. And I'm also using Venetta's Knife, which is my Trickster deception skill, which will bounce between enemies. It'll slow them, it'll apply damage effects, and then I can damage them while they have this effect to do extra damage to targets that are marked by Venetta's Knife. So that's why I'm using these three skills in combinations. You could switch out Venetta's Knife to a different skill if you prefer something else, although I like the flow of these skills better than some of the others. But essentially the focus here is just to be in close range and just spam your shotgun, an automatic shotgun at the targets. For your mods, it's hard to say specifically what you should look out for, especially in terms of your gear, because it is all randomized in terms of the loot drops that you do get. Like, I absolutely need a better shotgun than the one that I've currently got, but fundamentally there's a couple of mods that you absolutely should be looking out for and put on your gear regardless of what other drops you get and what are the other mods that you do have. The first is Instant Reload, which is a Hunt the Prey mod, which teleporting instantly replenishes magazine in your current weapon. So this means that you can always have the uptime for your twisted rounds. You can use this to reload when you can't reload or increase your ammo count by other methods. Now, the other methods that I'm referring to is I'm personally using the bleed from my bulwark. So with my weapon here, it inflicts bleed every 1 second. And then I'm using the vampiric mod on my boots, which every time I kill someone which is affected by bleed, which is every enemy that I do shoot, then I get 40% of my ammo magazine back. Now, if you don't have this weapon or you're using a different weapon, there are other ways to get your ammo back. And essentially the purpose of this is to avoid reloading, because when you reload, you will lose that twisted rounds. So in your weapons here, you can actually add Perpetual Mobile onto the piece of gear, which will instantly refresh your magazine completely if your magazine size is less than 35%. So really the main focus here is any way to get that ammo count back is really important. The reason I'm using Vampiric Mag as well as Instant Reload from Hunt the Prey is on bosses, there is no way for you to get that kill reload, because on bosses, they're not going to die often. Sometimes you'll get some back from like the ads that they spawn, but you really need other ways to get that ammo back. So on bosses, I basically use the Instant Reload as a way of reloading to keep my magazine count high, and then I never actually use my buffs from the twisted rounds, because every time I have like one bullet left in my magazine, I just wait that split second until I can then hunt the prey and then get my magazine completely full again so that I can deal all that damage. Other things you should look at is basically picking up any of the twisted round buffs. You know, I'm running additional mag, which you don't necessarily have to, it just came on this chest piece that I have done. Because we never reload anyway, you can really replace that with anything. Twisted Fate is the important one here to give yourself an extra 10% critical damage. I'm also running Life Drain, so twin twisted rounds, when the skill's active, I get extra health back, because as a Trickster, we're an extremely glass cannon, so any way you can get your health back is super important, as well as any buffs to the Venetta's Knife that I'm running here to increase the duration, as well as increasing how far it bounces, and a couple of other things to increase my shotgun weapon damage. The thing with mods really is anything that gives you any kind of value you can really put on, but the main focus here is on anything that just simply increases your ammo count or anything that increases your abilities with twisted rounds, because twisted rounds is the crux of any of these builds. Obviously strong twist is super important as well, which is on my headpiece, which will increase the firepower of twisted rounds by a huge percentage. The weapon I'm using for this is the Bulwark because of the bleed effect, and that's how I'm linking it with that. Now, I've been tinkering with Killing Spree as the second mod here. You can really switch this out for any of the tier 3 mods. I really think that not using using Perpetual Mobile is more valuable than actually using it, because you can replace this with something like any of these tier 3 mods that just do straight extra damage, so it just increases your damage potential. I mean, tinkering with Killing Spree as the option here, as I do like it, and it just gives that extra weapon damage because we're constantly going to be killing things. That 10% increases to up to 3 kills, so 30% extra weapon damage just for always using this weapon. So it works out pretty well for using something like this. The skills for this build are mostly focused on the assassin tree. We're basically picking up majority of everything in the assassin line. Shotgun Master is super critical to have because we are just only using a shotgun, really. You're almost never going to switch to your secondary weapon. I'd have Assault Rifle in my secondary weapon just to have something different, and I did get this Inferno Seed Assault Rifle, which is pretty decent, but realistically, you're never going to switch weapons. It's only as like a in case of emergency sort of deal. But essentially, you're going to follow everything up this line. The couple of skills here that really stand out is towards the end, and that being the magazine size, the oddity summation, as well as Bounty Hunter to increase your damage against elites, because there are tons of elites in the new endgame. There was in the old endgame, but it's really important to pick that up as well. You could also spec into Transfusion to increase your weapon leech, but we are getting some of that weapon leech from the Ascension tree now, as well as some other skills that we can get that from, so I don't think it's as critical to pick up, whereas if you are struggling, I would drop something like Outrider Executioner and the Ace of Trumps to pick up Transfusion if you are struggling with your health, because the Trickster does struggle with health and staying alive in the fight, because you have to kill things to get your health back, and also you're a glass cannon to begin with, so it can be a struggle. But if you are struggling, pick up Transfusion, otherwise stick with those skills. For your Pax trees, I think there's really two options here, and I'm still trying to figure out which one is the best. Now, I've initially gone with the Spectre line through the center here to grab the Spectral Spike. So damaging skills have a 100% chance, so essentially it just does this effect, chance to deal additional damage equal to 15% of your anomaly power. Consecutive triggers on the same enemy stack, dealing up to 750 damage. Now that is like a huge bonus, and it does seem like this effect does do heaps of damage. However, if you are struggling with like staying alive in the fights, the bottom line in the Exploiter is actually really interesting too, and it's something I've been tinkering with, especially because of Triggerman, right? So Triggerman, your damage is increased by 15% for each skill on cooldown. Now we are always going to have pretty much 2 skills on cooldown, like the Venetta's Knife and Hunt the Prey are practically always going to be on cooldown. Twisted Rounds almost never on cooldown, because you're always going to have this active, so it's not actually going to be on cooldown. So essentially you just get a straight 30% damage increase for almost all of the time while those skills are on cooldown, because you just use them constantly. So it does work out well to use, but I'm not sure if it outweighs the benefits, right? Like the end goal for these in the Spectre lines, none of them really benefit this line as much as you get from, say, Spectral Strike or even Quantum Entanglement, which I've been tinkering with to increase your close range damage to share between different enemies. But Meticulous Schemer, 200% of killing damage on enemies tagged with deception skills is divided amongst other tagged enemies. But it seems to do some effect, but not as much as I would have liked, so I don't think it's necessarily worth picking up, but it's interesting. I'm not sure. I would like to do more testing, and if you guys have figured out which one of these lines is the best, do let me know in the comments down below, but it really can go either way, I think. For your Ascension trees, you practically want to focus simply on brutality, picking up the weapon damage. The weapon leash is actually super critical. Like, I didn't think this was worth picking up, but I dropped it while I was running like a tier 20 trial, and as soon as I dropped it, I just like immediately died. So I was like, maybe I do need more weapon leech. So I've just kept this, and I think it's worth keeping just for that extra survivability. So you get some health back while you're dealing damage, and then once you do kill them, you always get that bonus of health back for the Trickster. But essentially, everything into brutality, close range weapon damage, avoid the long range stuff because we're all about close range with this shotgun build. Armor piercing is probably worth picking up too. Then I would go into the anomaly line to increase your anomaly power and those likes, because your twisted rounds will use that benefit as well. So everything you pick up in the anomaly line will be beneficial there. And then into prowess to lower your cooldowns, increase your crit chance, your crit damage, your elite bonus damage, and those kind of things. And magazine size, obviously important for this build as well. And then you can move into something into endurance as your last chance, really, as the final skills that you do have. Some tips for playing the Trickster is you are a massive glass cannon. Your health is a huge priority as this class. Some of the other classes can just like get away with just holding left click and not having to worry about their health, but as a Trickster, you are going to go down occasionally when, if you get stunned or locked in place, and essentially it comes down to your recognition of using your amount of play, right? If things are coming at you very aggressively, you need to move away from that location. Like if you're getting surrounded, you need to hunt the prey and use that to teleport to somewhere else. And then when you do use hunt the prey, you get some of that shield, which will give you that time to then kill something to get your health back and focus on that cycle of killing things to get your health back and rinse repeat. And then because we're using some of that weapon leash, it does help in that regard as well. When you're fighting bosses and things that you can't actually get your ammo back on, waiting for the hunt the prey cooldown to instantly replenish your ammo is like the absolute most important thing you should do. Don't actually use all your ammo and reload. Even if you do, you can cancel the reload by like spamming trying to cast things. So like I've been able to cancel it a couple of times by casting Venetta's knife, so you cancel your reload so it starts again, and that can occasionally give you that like extra second for the cooldown, and then you can actually cast it and then use it. You'll get all your ammo back and you won't actually lose twisted rounds. But essentially, as long as you don't lose twisted rounds in combat, that's like the main thing. If you do lose it, it's not so bad. You can put that mod on so you get the extra magazine of twisted rounds, but essentially you can replace this for a damage mod because you should be able to keep it up practically all of the time. That's your main goal, so you can replace it with a damage mod. And sometimes you'll lose it because of the enemies that will prevent you from using skills, but then you can just wait that cooldown and get it back. Where possible, try and attack enemies from behind because we do get bonuses from attacking from behind with our different skills that we have. So if you can attack from behind, you'll get that extra damage increase. Obviously critical hits and headshots are beneficial as well, but attacking from behind will just give you that extra bonus damage. And check out my Worldslayer guide if you're looking for any tips and tricks for returning to Outriders with Worldslayer and things that's new with this expansion. Thank you for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.